The Supreme Court rules that teachers in a public school can lead their students in prayer, and in a rare miss for religious freedom, I actually don't necessarily agree with this, but we'll talk just a bit about this, and I will lay out my case as to why, on this instance, I don't agree with this, as much as I think that more people in this country should be praying. So we'll talk just a bit about that. In other news, Pelosi has signaled a vote to codify key Supreme Court rulings, including Roe v. Wade, and ending the filibuster to do so, in spite of the fact that she has no authority over the filibuster. So we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that. Let's see. Mayor Flores says the Speaker of the House has pushed her daughter during a photo op, and we've got some video of that, so we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that. And the Ukraine is getting another step closer to membership in the European Union, which means the ability to use our army to protect them. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome to midterm season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Ed Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and we have got a fairly packed schedule today, but again, as I've been saying for quite a few weeks now, some of this is going into the fact that we have 20 news articles left over from yesterday. Which, by the way, we actually made some very good time yesterday while we were going through everything, because we were set up when we had 78 news tabs sitting up on the top, and we got through 53 of them. It took us till 10:30 to do it, but we got through 53 of them. So, good job. I'm sorry, 57, because we're down to 21, and I did cut a couple back out of here too, but we've got more Supreme Court news. We've got more Roe versus Wade news. Definitely, Roe versus Wade is still the topic du jour off of this here, and I even get to have a little bit of a cuss at Glenn Beck, because you know, he's coming out here with these, well, we'll talk about it with the tweet, but he's pointing out people who came up with a tweet that they're going after with Ken Olin, and he pretty much used and quoted the tweet that I put out with a meme verbatim, but couldn't put it up on the screen, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about a bunch more. The Ukraine, I know we're going to get to that. Joe Biden actually apparently, unwittingly, wired money to Hunter Biden to take care of some of his legal fees too, and I guess there's question right now as to whether or not he did that on the taxpayer dole. So there's a lot. There's always a lot here. So that's what we're going to see over on Contemporary. A couple announcements before we get started, before we get into various things here. Number one, and I'm going to put the emote up again. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on any of the other platforms, but you will be able to see it over on the Twitch side. I've decided that I'm going to take a much, much bigger focus on the Twitch again, because I am making money over there. And I said it yesterday towards the end of the long stream that we've got to give out a good shout out to A Gaines P, who is throwing around those gift subs like they are candy, and it's very much appreciated here. So I've taken some time. I took some time yesterday, and I'm probably going to take a little bit of time depending on my work schedule through the week before I leave on Friday to see what it is that I can do to actually make this, make sure that people who throw the money at my Twitch side actually get something for throwing the money at the Twitch side. I put a new emote in for free. I'm going to put 5 emotes in for free for everybody to be able to use that are channel specific. I'm going to put 5 in for if you are sub to the lowest tier. And I'm going to make some really, really spicy ones for people to be able to use on the highest tier. Like, if you're paying me $25 a month to come out and stream, is Bezos listening right now? You should be able to use an emote that says World Global Homo. And we'll see if he catches it or not. But yeah, that's my thought off of that. If you're going to be paying me that much money a month, you should be able to get the spiciest stuff, the best stuff here. And not everybody's going to be able to see it unless... I think they're not going to be able to see it unless they pay into the highest tier. But I want to encourage people to do so. I'm going to be setting up... I talked with Harvey McLeod a little bit yesterday to try to figure out how to set up... I don't know if a lot of you guys watch other video game streams and stuff on Twitch, but when you're over on Twitch, if somebody subscribes to a channel, if they follow a channel, if they bring in a raid, or if they host or anything else like that, they have various different alerts going out on their channels, and I'm going to set that up. And if I set it up correctly, I will be able to hear it in the headphones, so I can go over and check on the Twitch side as well and say, hey, you know, thanks for the follow. Thanks for the host. Hey, thanks for paying me money. But really try to incentivize us more, because you guys have been awesome. You've been here every day. You watch the commercials. I see how much you guys put in here, and it's not an insignificant amount for those of you who watch over on Twitch, so I want to start giving back to that. I don't have the same abilities to do that with the lemons over on DLive. The other side of that, though, is especially with having audio alerts, though, is I don't want this to get to be like Josh Smith's channel, where it's like you're listening to that, and I only listen to it on the audio platform. I've never actually seen and watched the YouTube Joshua Smith show, but where for like minutes and minutes on end, you just keep hearing the alert of somebody doing a super chat. So it's going to be something very short, very brief as the alert, so it doesn't clog out the message here. But yeah, we're going to be doing some of that stuff. We're going to revamp this and redo this and actually make this something community. But that's enough talking about this here. Let's get some more people in here, and we'll probably talk about this a bit later as well. But let's get into the news. Make sure you guys go and check out the Daily Ignoramus, or what are we calling it now? What's Steven going to be calling it now? The Occasional Ignoramus? Because he's not doing it daily anymore. He is taking some time and focusing up on his music career, which is phenomenal. I'm so happy for him. And I know wherever he goes and wherever he continues down his path, he is going to be helping out with liberty, freedom, as much as he wants monarchy. He's going to be helping out with liberty and freedom. But go check him out. Go check out the Porch Boys on tonight. Go check out the Breakdown with Birkenhoff. And I don't even know if the R-Rated Conservative is still streaming. I have not had an alert from the RRC in months upon months. But if you do find him, go check him out. He's a great friend to the movement. He is a great friend to liberty, conservatism, and an all-around great guy, too. I miss that. I could call that guy at some point. All right, let's get started. Let's get into it. I spent enough time babbling about myself, so let's do this. Going in, starting with the finance, as we always do. The Dow took, well, it was kind of a jump rope day again yesterday. Throughout the day yesterday, it dropped at the beginning, just kind of like I thought it would. It started off high from the futures, but the futures were already on the route down. And they bounced, and they came back up, and they came back up to before the well above where the previous close was, and well before where they started. But then they kind of trickled out again throughout the day, jumping a little bit here, dropping off towards the end of the day, and right at the last second, taking another spike. Now, it does look like the futures are looking back up, so it looks like they're going to start up high, but we'll see what happens with that and what happens through trading through the rest of the day. Looking at your Bitcoin, after taking a significant drop throughout the day yesterday, it brought itself back up to about the break-even point, bringing itself back up to the $21,010 US and 50 US cent mark. Over the 5 days, that is where I say break-even, just down slightly. $93 US dollars and 90 US cents, but considerably up from where it was at its low through yesterday. So that's what we see coming off of that. And the fuel, which is still holding steady. The Costco in Sun Prairie is at $4.34. The Quick Trip at Sun Prairie is at $4.34. It does look like $4.34 is the standard for the Sun Prairie area. And some of that's starting to trickle down into the Madison proper area as well. The Quick Trip on Milwaukee Street in Madison proper is at $4.34. The other Madison proper stations are at $4.39, and the Quick Trip on University Ave is at $4.45. So, are we seeing a kickback up? I'm not sure, but right now, this is considerably lower and a big reprieve off of what we've had previously. So we will see what's happening with that. With that, let's get into the news articles from IBD. Hang on, we got to refresh this. Dow futures climb, but Nike slides on weak sales guidance. From Scott Latonin. Dow futures briefly rose 200 points Tuesday, looking to rebound from Monday's losses, but Nike stock slid on weak sales guidance. Late Monday, Dow stock Nike reported better than expected earnings, but Nike shares dropped more than 2% in early trade after weaker than expected revenue guidance. The stock ended Monday about 38% off of its 52-week high. Let me take this down just a touch more. A little bit loud in my ears. Tesla rose nearly 1% early Tuesday, even as Deutsche Bank cut its price target from $12.50 to $11.25. Elsewhere, Dow tech leaders Apple and Microsoft were slightly higher ahead of today's stock market open. In the early stages of the new stock market rally, the Dow leaders Johnson & Johnson and Merck, as well as AutoZone, Bristol-Myers Squibb, and Eli Lilly, and Quanta Services were among the stocks to watch and buy. Quanta is an IBD leaderboard watchlist stock. Eli Lilly is on the IBD swing trader. And Bristol was IBD's stock of the day on June 22nd. AutoZone was featured in this week's Stocks Nearby Zone column. On the futures, ahead of Tuesday's open, Dow futures rose 0.35% versus fair value. The S&P moved up 0.3%, and the Nasdaq climbed 0.2%. Although, and I just want to point this out, if that's at 0.35%, let's get the old calculator out here. I don't know where it was at. Never mind, we won't do that. But I know that we're at the 30,000 mark, then if they were at 200, they were closer to 1%. Than 0.35%. So it looks like there has been some back off on what the futures were. I forgot, I already closed the window that showed where the Dow Jones was. Let's see. Among the ETFs, NASDAQ 100 tracker Invesco QQQ Trust moved up 0.2%. The SPDR S&P 500 ETF gained 0.35% in early trade. The 10-year Treasury yield ticked higher to 3.24% Tuesday, following Monday's rise to 3.19%. The 10-year yield is rebounding after a sharp pullback in mid-June. It hit its highest level since April of 2011 at 3.48%. Meanwhile, the U.S. oil prices are trying to rebound after recent losses, with West Texas Intermediate trading just above $111 a barrel. In early March, WTI briefly topped out above $130. Prediction? We are back above $120 after the demand from the 4th of July travel holiday. So that's definitely a possibility. We will see what happens on Tuesday, the 5th of July. Let's grab one from the Wall Street Journal and let's get into the main news of the day. Stock market slips after last week's big rally from Chelsea Delaney and Corey Drebouche. U.S. stocks slipped on Monday, losing some momentum after rallying last week on easing expectations for the path of the Federal Reserve's interest rate increases. The S&P lost early gains and closed down 11.63%, or 0.3%, at 3,911. The Dow lost 62.42 points, or 0.2%, to 31,438.26, while the technology-focused Nasdaq retreated to 83.07 points, or 0.7%, to 11,054. or 524.55. Wow, it would really help if I could read. Traders described a quiet day with low volumes and investors in a holding pattern with few moving around money. It's very sleepy today, said Justin Wiggs, managing director in equity, trading at Stifel Nicholas, contrasting the anemic volumes with those last week. Friday's close was a bit frenetic, he added, referring to the FTSE Russell's rebalancing of stock benchmarks and adding and deleting companies from indices tied to trillions of dollars of investments. On Friday, the S&P posted its largest one-day percentage gain in 2 years, weaker than expected. U.S. economic data have caused investors to reassess their expectations for a blistering pace of monetary policy tightening from the Federal Reserve. So, that's what we are seeing coming out of the markets for today. Let's get into the Supreme Court. Actually, before we do that, we've got to talk about one that we weren't able to cover at all yesterday because the entire news cycle yesterday was dominated by Roe versus Wade. So we're going to start here with one from CNN. Biden signs bipartisan gun safety bill into law. God willing, it's going to save a lot of lives, man. Come on. From Don Judd. President Biden on Saturday signed into law the first major federal gun safety legislation passed in decades, marking a significant bipartisan breakthrough in one of the most contentious policy issues in Washington. God willing, it's going to save a lot of lives, Biden said at the White House as he finished signing the bill. The legislation came together in the aftermath of recent mass shootings in Uvalde and Buffalo. A bipartisan group of negotiators. I saw the group of negotiators for this. I don't know where you're getting bipartisan from this because they're both from the neo-mono party of their respective wings of the court. It's not the extremist progressive socialist Democrats and it's not the MAGA Republicans. It's that war-loving, money-grubbing, either neoliberal or neoconservative wing that was the mono party that brought us the Clintons, the Bushes, etc. There was nothing bipartisan about this. Was released by Republican Senators Cornyn of Texas and Tillis of North Carolina and Chris Murphy and Kyrsten Sinema. Those four names tell you all that you need to know about this. The House on Friday passed the bill by 234 to 193, including 14 Republicans voting with Democrats. The Senate passed the bill in a late-night vote on Thursday. In his remarks, the president announced he'd host members of Congress who supported the landmark gun safety legislation at a White House event on July 11th, following his return from Europe, to celebrate the new law with the families of gun violence victims. He's going to have an ice cream social for the people who decided they wanted to curtail your rights. Yeah, that sounds like monoparty stuff. The package represents the most significant new federal legislation to address gun violence since the expired 10-year assault weapons ban of 1994. Though it fails to ban any weapons and falls far short of what Biden and his party had advocated for, and polls show that most Americans want to see. Well, the bill doesn't do everything that I want, man. It includes actions I've called for that are going to save lives, man, Biden said. Today we say more than enough. We say more than enough. This time, when it seems impossible to get anything done in Washington, we're doing something consequential, man. Come on, man. Biden added, if we can reach a compromise on guns, then we can definitely oppress the people. I mean, we ought to be able to reach a compromise on other critical issues. From veterans' health care to cutting-edge American innovation, and so much more. I know there's much more work to do, and I'm never going to give up. But this is a monumental day, man. Come on. It includes $750 million to help states implement and run crisis intervention programs. The money can be used to implement and manage red flag programs, and that's where it is. This is not so much because the Senate Judiciary, not the Judiciary, what's the name of that lady that parliamentarian, the Senate parliamentarian was presented with a version in a draft of the bill that said, we're going to put red flag laws in nationwide. And the parliamentarian said, you can't do that. That violates the Fourth Amendment. And the Fifth Amendment, arguably, but that violates the Fourth Amendment. So instead, they do the same thing that they did to make sure that the age to purchase alcohol in every state was over the age of 21, even though there's no federal law mandating that. There's one for tobacco, oddly enough, but not for alcohol. Where what they did was they drug out a bunch of money. In the case of alcohol, it was highway funding, and in the case of this, it looks like it's crisis intervention programs. And they pulled out the dollar bill and they say, you want this? Oh, I know you want this. Oh, I know you want this. You just put the laws in that we can't put in because the Constitution, ooh, it's all yours. Come on, come on, come on, get it, 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 get it. And they're doing it with your money. Which, through court's orders, can temporarily prevent individuals in a crisis from accessing firearms without any form of due process. And for other crisis intervention programs like mental health courts, drug courts, and veteran courts. The bill closes a years-old loophole in domestic violence law, the boyfriend loophole, which barred individuals who have been convicted of domestic violence crimes against spouses, partners with whom they shared children, or partners with whom they cohabitated from having guns. Old statutes didn't include intimate partners who may not live together, be married, or share children. Man, I can't see how that won't get abused. Maybe it's just me who can't see how that would be abused when I had an ex-girlfriend who literally admitted to the fact that her entire purpose for dating me was to try to convince me to kill myself. Who literally said those words to me. Yeah, I can't see for a second how that would get abused. Now the law will bar anyone from having a gun, anyone who's convicted of a domestic violence crime against someone they have a continuing serious relationship or romantic or intimate nature. The law isn't retroactive. It will, however, allow those convicted of misdemeanor domestic violence crimes to restore their gun rights after 5 years if they haven't committed other crimes. So at least that one does seem to have some sort of due process. If you've been convicted of beating up your old lady, like actually sat in front of a jury or pleaded out, the bill encourages states to include juvenile records in the National Instant Criminal Background Check System with grants, as well as implements a new protocol for checking those records. Was unaware that that wasn't a thing. The bill goes after individuals who sell guns as a primary source of income, but have previously evaded registering as federally licensed firearms dealers. It also increases funding for mental health programs and school security. So, again, it's not the seizure of all guns that the left in this country wanted, but it is there. And especially with the age raise that's in there, 21 years to buy any sort of semi-automatic firearm. I want to see who's going to be the first 18-year-old to go take this one to the Supreme Court. I'm sure there are lawyers out there that are primed to take up that case. All right, from NBC. Supreme Court rules for former coach in public school prayer case. Former coach Joe Kennedy argued that the Bremerton School District in Washington State violated his religious freedom by telling him he couldn't pray on the field after games. On first glance, I'm going to come out and say, I don't particularly care for this decision. But for a different reason than the leftoids are freaking out about it. From Pete Williams, the Supreme Court ruled Monday that a former Washington State high school football coach had a right to pray on the field immediately after games. The 6-3 ruling was a victory for Joe Kennedy, who claimed that the Bremerton School District violated his religious freedom by telling him he couldn't pray so publicly after the games. The district said it was trying to avoid the appearance that the school was endorsing a religious point of view. Both the free exercise and the free speech clauses of the First Amendment protected expressions like Mr. Kennedy's. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote in the majority opinion, nor does a proper understanding of the amendment's Establishment Clause require the government to single out private religious speech for special disfavor. The Constitution and the best of our traditions counsel mutual respect and tolerance, not censorship and suppression for religious and non-religious views alike. In recent years, a more conservative Supreme Court has been inclined to view government actions once considered to be neutral and necessary to maintain a separation of church and state as hostile to religious expression. One issue in the case was whether the coach's decision to pray in such a prominent place on the 50-yard line amounted to a private moment of giving thanks or a public demonstration of his religious faith that his players may have felt compelled to join. Kennedy urged the Supreme Court to find that he was acting on his own behalf, expressing his own religious views, not speaking as a mouthpiece for the school. But the school district said the students on the football team looked up to the coach and felt coerced to doing as he did. And that's where I come with some of the issue with this. Now, as far as can you pray in a school? If you have any inkling at all of religion, ever in your life, and you've come up to that big test that popped up that you didn't study for, I think the vast majority of us watching this have prayed in school at one point. Publicly, privately, etc. So it's not a matter of the fact that that prayer never happens in school. The leading of prayer, whether compulsory or not, the leading of prayer from a figure, I don't know. Like I say, I think that the coach himself should be able to pray if he wants to, privately. But we do come into the question of whether or not it's compulsory for the students to do so. I'm sure that a bunch of them did come up and join in off of this. He wasn't specifically, I don't know. This is a really, really sticky one for me. Because on one end of it, it sounds like they're saying, oh, well, he's leading students in prayer, but it looks like from his defense, he wasn't leading them in prayer. But some of them did feel like they were compelled to do so because he was the coach and they looked up to him. I don't know. I think that everybody should have the ability to pray in their own way. And I know people are trying to straw man this back out and say, oh, well, once the Muslims start praying in schools, then they're going to get rid of this really, really quick, which is, I mean, the same thing, the same argument that they tried to make with the, oh, once the black people start to go buy the guns, they're going to make gun control really, really quick. Which there are some of them out there who will probably do that, and we will call them out as the jerk-offs that they are. But as far as this goes, I do think that it has to be out there, where if the coach prays, it has to be well known that it's not compulsory. And if you don't want to join in, then you don't have to join in, especially in a public school setting. But to say that prayer never happens in schools, that's just naivety. In a dissent joined by the other two liberal justices, Breyer and Kagan, Sotomayor wrote that the court consistently has recognized that the school officials leading prayer is constitutionally impermissible, and said the ruling did a disservice to schools, students, and the nation's longstanding commitment to the separation of church and state, which is the only part of the First Amendment that they know. Which is also funny because it's not actually there. Today's decision is particularly misguided because it elevates the religious rights of a school official who voluntarily accepted public employment and the limits that public employment entails. over those of his students who are required to attend school, who this court has long recognized are particularly vulnerable and deserving of protection, Sotomayor wrote. In doing so, the court sets us further down a perilous path, in forcing the states to entangle themselves with religion, with all of our rights hanging in the balance. Further, the majority misrepresented some key points in the case, she wrote. In the majority opinion, Gorsuch wrote that Kennedy lost his job after kneeling at midfield after games to offer a quiet, personal prayer. But Sotomayor wrote, to the degree the court portrays the petitioner, Joseph Kennedy's prayers, as private and quiet, it misconstrues the facts. The record reveals that Kennedy had a long-standing practice of conducting demonstrative prayers on the 50-yard line of the football field. Kennedy consistently invited others to join his prayers, and for years led students and athletes in prayers at the same time and location. The court ignores this history. The court also ignores the severe disruption to school events caused by Kennedy's conduct, she wrote. So, as of right now, doing a private personal prayer in school is in. You cannot lead your students in it. You cannot compel them to join in, unless you're a religious institution. But in public school, if you want to thank the Lord or hope for a victory, that is your right. But we will see where this goes. Let's skip that one because that looks like a review off the same thing. I wanted to touch on this for just a moment here from Jay Quo, who has a lengthy thread about this. And in this lengthy thread, talks about things that everybody should be in support of. Jay Quo tweets out, not to freak anyone out, but there's still cases to come, including one that could shake the power of the federal government to its core. It's called West Virginia versus EPA, and the most extreme ruling would declare that Congress lacks the power to delegate authority to federal agencies to implement policy. You speak of this like it's a bad thing. To federal agencies to implement policy under existing law, Congress may delegate its regulatory authority to an administrative agency, but must provide intelligible principle or standard by which the agency must exercise its quasi-legislative powers. Agencies have traditionally met the standard with ease, but recently, conservative courts have resurrected the non-delegation doctrine to strike down acts by agencies that would easily have passed muster before. If applied in a draconian manner, the non-delegation doctrine could end federal government as we know it. Okay, what's the downside to this argument? I need to hear a downside to this. If the court actually went so far as Justin Kagan said in a case in 2019, if the defendant's delegation is unconstitutional, then most of the government is unconstitutional. Yes, that's correct. Kagan was writing for the plurality of four liberals, joined by Justice Alito, in concurrence that has always bothered me. If a majority of the court were willing to reconsider this approach we have taken for the past 84 years, I would support that effort, he wrote, teasing the idea of non-delegation to his fellow conservatives. But because a majority is not willing to do that, it would be freakish to single out the provision at issue here for special treatment. Since then, two more evil conservatives, Kavanaugh and Barrett, were added to the court. Where they stand is unclear. Kavanaugh had not been seated at the time of oral arguments in this case, so he couldn't vote. Prior to these two recent extremist decisions on gun legislation and abortion, I would not have bet that SCOTUS would dare a seismic shakeup between the other branches of government using the non-delegation doctrine, but it's certainly unusual that it released Dobbs first. Momentous decisions usually get announced last in the typical SCOTUS calendar. That's why I'm a bit nervous. What is the court planning with the EPA decision? You say all this like it's a bad thing. See, the thing with West Virginia versus EPA is this. This would, if decided in the way that's proper, take the ability for the EPA, the CIA, the ATF, the IRS, the CDC to make policy in their current form as unelected bureaucrats, and many of the people in these agencies roll over from administration to administration. They get appointed by one admin, but they stay in the department and lobby and make policy for generations at a time. And what it does after that is it takes some of that power away from the federal government, or from the executive branch rather, and gives it either to states, where you can actually come in and, like I always say, you can see your representative in the grocery store and say, hey, what the heck, man? What the hey? Why would you do a thing like that? Or, if we want to look at this at a more federal level, it goes back to Congress. The executive branch agencies still maintain the ability to enforce the laws, but actually making the policy goes to people who can be held accountable every other year. It was the same thing with the Dobbs decision. There is really no way to hold the Supreme Court accountable for Roe versus Wade, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, or the Dobbs decision. There's no way to hold any of them accountable for that. But if Congress makes a law, and you don't like what your representative does, every other year, you can go vote that, or attempt to vote that representative out. And it may work in your favor sometimes, and it may not work in your favor sometimes. But you have that option every other year, whereas a Supreme Court justice is on the bench for a lifetime appointment, with very, very few opportunities to remove that person. The EPA, with its bureaucrats and leaders, that the people, the actual people, have no ability to remove, making the policy rather than just enforcing it. That's another example of this. And Jay Kuno says all this again like it's a bad thing. All right, from the Daily Wire. Lots of stuff here, lots of images. And even some video as well. But from the Daily Wire, in the wake of Roe v. Wade, attacks on churches and pregnancy centers escalate. From Mary Margaret Olahan. Surprisingly enough, we don't have a lot of the big mainstream news outlets covering any of this. Churches and pro-life Catholic pregnancy centers and organizations are under continued attack following the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Data compiled by the Susan B. Anthony List and Catholic Vote have found out that dozens of centers have been attacked since the early May leak of the draft Supreme Court opinion indicating Roe v. Wade might be overturned. The monumental Supreme Court decision came down on Friday as pro-lifers braced themselves for violent attacks following threats from pro-abortion activists to rage and protest over abortion. Less than a day after the ruling came down, authorities were alerted of a fire at Life Choices Pregnancy Center in Longmont, Colorado. This is one of the least 9 attacks on pro-life centers in a Catholic institution that the Daily Wire has reviewed since the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Longmont, Colorado, the building sustained heavy fire and smoke damage, police said of the pregnancy center. Both the FBI and public safety are investigating the incident. The NRKA bans off our bodies. If abortion isn't safe, then neither are you, in cursive, as usual. Lynchburg, Virginia, the Blue Ridge Pregnancy Center. Jane's Revenge. If abortion ain't safe, then you aren't either. Smashed windows. Youngkin tweets out, there's no room in Virginia for breaking the law. There's no room for this in Virginia. Breaking the law is unacceptable. This is now not how we find common ground. Virginia State Police stands ready to support local law enforcement as they investigate. Houston, Texas. Firefighters responded to a fire at Sacco Company Catholic Store on Saturday evening, where a fire reportedly broke out around 8 p.m. Philly. Father Patrick Briscoe of Dominican Friars in Philadelphia shared Sunday that St. Patrick Parish has been vandalized overnight. Abort the church is the tweet that comes out of that. Arrest in Virginia. Police are investigating after St. John Newman Catholic Church was targeted Sunday with graffiti and possible arson. Jeff McKay says no room for violence, vandalism, or destruction of property in Fairfax County. Paso Robles, California, Tree of Life was vandalized Friday night and Saturday morning at the Paso Robles Police Department, told the local California outlet KSBY. Portland, which is in a constant state of protest and fire. Well, Andy Ngo gives us some of this. Raleigh, West Virginia, Eugene, Oregon. 10 arrested in Eugene as police used pepper spray at a rowdy pro-abortion demonstrators Friday night. Right back. Eugene's police's mobile response team arrived in the area to block the building using its vehicles and officers to surround the building, the department said. The crowd continued to grow and began blocking East 11th Avenue. By standing in the roadway, some people were observed picking up rocks and several began putting on masks. One female had a chemical pump sprayer and she was pumping it up. Additional EPD patrol responses were called in. EPD's crisis negotiation team eventually used their sound truck, which has an LRAD system on the truck to provide louder volumes, to the admonishment so they could be heard over the crowd noise, the police said. Those who remained in the roadway were subject to arrest. The crowd did not comply. After the first arrest, the crowd became extremely loud and verbally hostile towards the officers and tried to get through the line. So that is some of what's been cranking up off of this. It doesn't look like they're using the LRAD in the video that we have here, but yeah, they're stepping it up. And again, there's not a lot of mainstream coverage over this. You've got to go to places like the Daily Wire, The Blaze, sometimes Fox, even though they don't do a lot of coverage of this either, to come back and see this, because this doesn't fit with the narrative. And furthermore, if you start to see the unrest, the vandalism, etc., over a Supreme Court decision that does nullify the January 6th Select Committee. Now, they're having an emergency unannounced hearing today with apparently, allegedly, new evidence. But what I'm actually thinking is I think they're trying to get the evidence out to the American people, the evidence so-called, before we get a big violent pushback from one of these groups, or some of this starts getting talked about. Because again, if we start to see riots like this, if we start to see destruction, vandalism, etc., this completely nullifies the January 6th committee. Completely. But we'll see what happens with that. The Arizona Capitol is ringed with fencing after days of Roe protests. Coming to 12 News Arizona, an NBC affiliate local, via the Associated Press. Arizona's Capitol is now ringed with a double row of fencing and concertina wire strung in between. The fencing was put up over the weekend as 3 days of protests unfolded over the U.S. Supreme Court's decision saying there's no constitutional right to have an abortion. As many as 8,000 people marched and chanted at the Capitol Friday night, and the vast majority were peaceful. Mostly peaceful. But state troopers fired tear gas after a handful of protesters banged on the front glass of the state Senate, and at least one person tried to kick in a sliding door. Smaller protests were held following 2 days, but there were only a handful of arrests and no injuries. So, not a lot with that one, but yeah, it's... I mean, what are they worried about is the big thing, which... It does sound like there's going to be more coming down the pipes at this point. Because the Supreme Court hasn't been scared into going back on what it said. So yeah, they've got the fencing up. They've got the fencing up around the Supreme Court. They've probably got some up around the Capitol again. From Axios. Let's get the live chat back up here. Pelosi signals votes to codify key SCOTUS rulings protect abortion. From Andrew Solendar. House Speaker Pelosi on Monday said she's preparing votes on a number of bills protecting abortion as well as codifying landmark Supreme Court decisions as a response to the court overturning Roe v. Wade. In a Dear Colleague letter to her caucus, Pelosi hinted at bills to respond to Justice Clarence Thomas's concurring opinion in Dobbs v. Jackson, calling for the court to revisit landmark rulings to protect same-sex relationships, marriage equality, and access to contraceptives. Democrats are preparing their legislative fight against the 6-3 conservative court and the Republican-controlled states that moved to ban abortion in response to the ruling. They were also reacting to an outcry of anger from the base, which is calling for more action from lawmakers. Justice Thomas confirmed many of our deepest fears about where this decision may lead, taking aim at additional long-standing precedent and cherished privacy rights, from access to contraception and in vitro fertilization to marriage equality, Pelosi wrote. Legislation is being introduced to further codify freedoms which Americans currently enjoy. More information to follow. Again, I don't see the downside to this. Now, I don't personally agree with abortion. I am personally pro-life, but as most people know, I despise the federal government. I despise government in general, which means I have no trust in them at all to enforce any of this. I know that this will get turned over and abused just like everything else that the government touches, and ruined as it goes on, just like everything else the government touches. I would like to help build a society where people don't feel the need to have an abortion unless there is some major emergency or threat to the mother's health. With that being said, I still consider this to be the best case scenario. As I said at the top of the show, when we were talking about, well, not the top of the show, but when we were talking about the EPA decision. Right now, well, with Roe in place, not anymore, but up until Roe got overturned, the decision as to whether or not this was a practice accepted by the federal government belonged to 9 unelected justices. 9 people in long black robes who can make a decision unilaterally for 330 million people. Interestingly enough, the same argument that the pro-aborts, the sacrificers to Moloch, are trying to make with this of, why are 9 people in robes trying to make this decision for 330 million people? Well, here you have the solution to that. You have your representative, whichever district that you have, who now has to decide whether it's worth his career to say yes or no to this. And it goes in both directions, too, by the way. It's the same thing with the Obergefell. It's the same thing with contraceptions. All of these things belong in the legislature, where you have representation that you can hold accountable every 2 years. Not with judges that have a lifetime appointment. And again, I would actually much rather see this go at a state level, with things a little bit more localized, even coming down to a county or a municipality level. But this is one step away from the old system where 9 people in robes made the decisions for the entire country. So, good job. From the Daily Wire, Democrat Nancy Pelosi demonizes extremist Supreme Court as DHS warns of terrorism against judges. From Ryan Saavedra, Does she have a Ukrainian gavel? Are you serious? This is all a clown show, isn't it? From Ryan Saavedra. House Speaker Pelosi used vitriolic rhetoric as she demonized the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday over its decision to overturn Roe v. Wade last week. Pelosi's remarks were in a letter to other House Democrats, specifically targeted Clarence Thomas and John Roberts. In this disturbing concurrence, Justice Thomas confirmed many of our deepest fears about where this decision may lead, taking aim at additional long-standing precedent and cherished privacy rights. From access to contraception and in vitro fertilization to marriage equality, Pelosi wrote, "It's still appalling to me that Chief Justice of the Supreme Court could agree that a constitutional right does not exist. It was not spelled out explicitly and in public when the 14th Amendment was ratified over 150 years ago. While this extremist Supreme Court works to punish and control the American people, by taking the control away, are you out of your mind? Democrats must continue our fight to expand freedom in America." Pelosi continued, "It is clear from how Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell stacked the Supreme Court that elections have ramifications. It is essential that we protect and expand the pro-choice majorities in the House and Senate in November so we can eliminate the filibuster and that we can restore women's fundamental rights and freedom for every American." Dude, Nancy. You are going to be sorry. I can tell you that right off the bat. You are going to be sorry when you do that. Or when you have whoever your puppet is in the Senate do that. Probably Chuck U. Schumer. Pelosi's remarks came after a left-wing extremist group showed up near the home of Justice Brett Kavanaugh earlier this month with a gun and was charged with attempted murder. Look, I said this before. The correct decision was made on Roe versus Wade. Again, the fact of the matter is, and I was talking with this on Twitter with somebody too earlier. The fact of the matter is, it's now your time. If this is really important to you, legislator, get off the pot. Plain and simple. But as long as this was a Supreme Court decision, Pelosi never had to run on this or risk any of her blue members in more conservative states. For WWL, Louisiana judge blocks enforcement of statewide abortion trigger law. The author is Staff and Wire Reports. A Louisiana judge has blocked the enforcement of a statewide abortion ban designed to automatically go into effect when Roe fell. NOLA.com reports that Orleans Parish Civil District Judge Robin Giarrusso issued the order. The Louisiana Right to Life group issued a statement expressing confidence that the state's law will be affirmed. It's telling that the Shreveport abortion business filed a lawsuit with Orleans Parish, looking for a district judge who would side with abortion. We are thankful our Attorney General, Jeff Landry, will vigorously defend our pro-life laws. We look forward to these frivolous lawsuits being dismissed, and Louisiana will continue to work together to protect babies and support moms, said Executive Director Benjamin Clapper. The move comes after a Shreveport abortion clinic filed a lawsuit Monday disputing the state's ability to stop abortions. The suit claims that part of the trigger laws are too vague, making it impossible to tell when they're in effect and when exceptions are allowed. The state's 3 abortion clinics closed on Friday and remain closed. The fall of Roe shifted the battleground over abortion to the courthouses around the country as abortion foes looked to quickly enact statewide bans, and the other side sought to buy more time. The U.S. Supreme Court's decision on Friday to end constitutional protections for abortion opened the gates for litigation from all sides. Many of the court cases will focus on trigger laws. Those were adopted in anticipation of the ruling and are designed to take effect quickly. The lawsuits could also target old anti-abortion laws that were unenforced under Roe. On Monday, abortion rights advocates asked a Florida judge to block a new state law that bans abortion after 15 weeks with some exceptions. Attorneys hoping to stave off a ban on abortion in Louisiana filed a lawsuit. So I don't know what the Louisiana law was, but looking at some of the things that were coming out of Louisiana, I'm sure that it was a near total ban with almost no exceptions. Possibly even the greatest fear that they use for the 1% of cases that are out there where women will die, where it's miscarriage and ectopic pregnancy are included too. Which I can promise you, unless these people don't want to be in office anymore, they can just not run if they want that. Then you are not, no politician is willing to go start stacking bodies in the streets because people are dying because they have sepsis from a miscarriage. That's just not a thing. It's technically an abortion. But that's where we're coming from from Fox News. Actually, we'll skip that one. Let's go right on to Microsoft Start. From MSN.com, California to vote on constitutional amendment protecting abortion rights. From Reese Thibault. This is what those of us who were opponents of Roe wanted you to do. Again, I don't understand how you think that this is sticking it to us. This has come down to a state level, and this is apparently important to the people of Los Angeles, Sacramento, Oakland, and San Francisco, who are making all the decisions for the rest of California. California is poised to become the first state in the nation to explicitly enshrine the right to sacrifice your child to Moloch and contraception in its constitution, after lawmakers on Monday voted to advance a constitutional amendment putting the issue on the November ballot. The amendment is part of a flurry of legislative efforts in liberal states aimed at solidifying reproductive rights in the aftermath of last week's Supreme Court decision striking down Roe. California, which has advertised itself as a sanctuary for people seeking abortions, is trying to lead the way. Well, they're also a sanctuary for people illegally trying to come into the country, so there's that. The bill introducing the proposed amendment easily passed through the state's legislature, where Democrats hold a supermajority, and the voters will now consider it during the general election. A wide majority of Californians have said they oppose overturning Roe. The amendment is expected to pass. It does not require the signature of Gavin Newsom, who supports the measure. If enacted, the amendment will affirm abortion rights already protected under existing law. California's constitution, like those of several other states, includes a right to privacy that courts have interpreted as protecting abortion. But last month's leaked draft prompted lawmakers to clearly spell out the safeguard for reproductive rights. Imagine that being a part of your constitution. And I don't know how this is going to be worded, but imagine that being a part of your constitution. If a woman, or man, because it's California, wants to come in and kill his or her own child in utero, you can do that in California. I don't know how the legalese would be worded about that, but... And again, with the big laws that were coming, up to and including crowning with, quote, good mental or psychological or physical or psychological reasoning, I have to imagine that this goes right up to the moment of birth in California too, which makes me kind of sad. But I don't have a say in it because I don't live in California. Nor do I have any desire to ever live in California, honestly. Whoopi got into it. Whoopi Goldberg issues warning to Supreme Court Justice. You better hope they don't come for you, Clarence. From Virginia Kruta. Whoopi Goldberg issued a stark warning on Monday to Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, suggesting, His marriage to a white woman, Ginny Thomas, might come up for a debate in the future because of the court's recent ruling in Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health. The ruling, which was announced on Friday, overturned the previous landmark abortion rulings in both Roe and Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and Goldberg joined her co-hosts on The View to discuss the implications of that moving forward. Let's listen.
And I want to make things very clear. I'm very pro-life. I've never been anti-life. I want people to have the lives they want, but I don't want to force anybody. I don't want anybody coming in my house telling me how to raise my daughter and what she needs, because they don't know. I appreciate everybody's religion, but I do not subscribe to your religion. I don't ask you to subscribe to mine, and you do not have the right, based on your religious beliefs, to tell me, because what's next, as Clarence Thomas is signaling, they would like to get rid of contraception. Do you understand, sir? No, because you don't have to use it.
But that's crazy.
They don't have to use it.
Everything's on the menu now.
Contraception's on the menu. Gay marriage is now probably going to be overturned. Affirmative action is no more.
We were not in the Constitution either. Well, we were not even people
in the Constitution. Nothing is precedent anymore.
Well, you better hope that they don't come for you, Clarence, and say you should not be married to your wife, who happens to be white, because they will move back. And you better hope that nobody says, well, you're not in the Constitution, you're back to being a quarter of a person. Because that's not going to work either.
That's always the compelling argument. Oh, they're going to come after you next. Whereas, again, the big side of this is the fact of, okay, why can't we go and legislate this? Or, in an extreme case, do this at the state level. Why does everything have to come out of 9 unelected people in black robes? From the Blaze, Lightfoot had to get herself back in the news. Democratic Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot declares F. Clarence Thomas. From Alex Nitzberg, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, a Democrat. It's Chicago, that's obvious. Demonstrating an abysmal lack of propriety by publicly uttering profanity against Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. All right, those of you who got your kids in the room or in the car or whatever, earmuffs.
If you read Clarence Thomas' concurrence, he said, "Thank you, fuck Clarence Thomas."
Thank you, Clarence Thomas.
He thinks that we are going to stand idly by when they take our rights.
Charming. Indeed. On the other side of it, the Catholic Church had to weigh in on this, which actually I'm not surprised by in the least. The Vatican praises the U.S. court abortion decision, saying it challenges the world. A lot of people were surprised by this. I wasn't. Even if the Pope is not Catholic anymore, he still knows enough to pay lip service to Catholic doctrine. From Philip Pulella over at Reuters. The Vatican's Academy for Life on Friday praised the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on abortion, saying it challenged the world to reflect on life issues, but also called for social changes to help women keep their children. The Vatican Department also said in a statement that the defense of human life could not be confined to an individual right because life is a matter of broad social significance. Supreme Court on Friday took the dramatic step of overturning the 73 Roe v. Wade ruling. The Academy says, the fact that a large country with a long democratic tradition has changed its position on the issue also challenges the whole world, the Academy said in a statement. U.S. President Biden, a lifelong Catholic, condemned the rulings, calling it a sad day for America, and labeling the court's conservatives as extreme. Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia, who heads the Pontifical Academy for Life, said the court's decision was a powerful invitation to reflect on the issue at a time when Western society is losing passion for life. By choosing life, our responsibility for a future of humanity is at stake, Paglia said. The Roman Catholic Church teaches that abortion is murder because life begins at the moment of conception and ends with natural death. But again, you probably shouldn't be that surprised that the Catholic Church is coming out about it, even if it's just lip service. From The Blaze, this was my WTF moment for Glenn Beck. Your terms are acceptable, liberal actor and director Ken Olin tweets. In states where abortion is illegal, the father should be financially on the hook at the moment of conception. Yes. Yes, I agree with that. And again, we might have to go earmuffs for the parents who have their kids in the car or in the house or whatnot, but I'm going to be a little bit crude on this one for just a second, but if the father is financially responsible from the moment of conception, he might think twice about whether or not he wants to go back and blow it in that girl that he doesn't care about. That he just met. He might put a second of thought into that. Amid leftist outrage over a Supreme Court ruling that struck down Roe, Ken Olin, an outspoken leftist who has described President Biden as a giant, declared that in states where abortion is unlawful, fathers should be financially responsible from the time of conception. Well, it should be more than the states where it's unlawful. It should be all the states. Everywhere. In states where abortion is illegal, the father should be financially on the hook at the moment of conception. Olin tweeted, Olin is a director, producer, and actor. Many responded by noting that they completely agree with the policy position Olin mentioned. Your terms are acceptable, tweeted Dan McLaughlin of the National Review Online. No man should ever fail to support his own children, ever. In fact, no man should ever fail to stick around to raise his own children. Fatherhood, in all of its obligations, is what manhood is for, he added in another post. It never gets old that libs think this is a sick burn, John Cooper of the Heritage Foundation tweeted. Yes, that's been the pro-life position from day one. Welcome to the movement, Michael Quinn Sullivan tweeted. Thank you for making the decades-long argument that conservatives have made. We accept your terms, someone else tweeted. Olin is outspoken about his political views. He has praised President Biden and denounced former President Trump. Yes, the president is an elderly man, Olin tweeted about Biden, but he's an elderly man who knows what it takes to be a great president. And he still has the faculties. Well, can't say that with a straight face. To do the job with decency, ethics, empathy, conviction, honor, and character. Don't mistake humility for weakness. Biden is a giant. That Donald Trump, the epitome of a profligate, amoral, crude, ignorant, narcissistic, misogynistic, vile, sacrilegious liar and reprobate, would be the one responsible for taking America back to the repressive Christian laws of the mid-50s in the cruelest of ironies, Olin tweeted. Now, the reason I would not have normally put this up here, except for the fact that this is a WTF moment for me, because the headline, your terms are acceptable. Dan McLaughlin, your terms are acceptable, and he's getting this out here because he's got a blue check out here. But off of this tweet, there's me right there. Your terms are acceptable. Yes. I think that's proper. Come on, Glenn. You could have definitely put me up there. Glenn. You and me are going to have a little talk, Mr. Beck. In an update from the FDA, definitely not advice, says breaking, FDA grants emergency approval to Merck for new birth control method, which is an update to the NuvaRing product. Touting 100% effectiveness in reducing unwanted pregnancies, the engagement ring will hit shelves on Thursday. I thought you guys would enjoy that. Not technically true, obviously, but I thought you guys would enjoy that. I found it funny. And the last one on this before we get into other news. Nurse resigns after claiming on social media she would deny Viagra to white males who vote conservative. A registered nurse resigned after she claimed on social media that she would deny Viagra to white conservatives. The tweet from the nurse was highlighted by the popular Libs of TikTok account on Sunday, which I'm to the understanding, unless you are... You have to be above a registered nurse. I think it's a nurse practitioner you have to be. And I don't know why you would risk your career over something like this. If you went through all the schooling, all the training, and spent all the money to be a nurse practitioner. But I don't see how... I don't know how this person has the authority to do so. Unless she is a nurse practitioner. Libs of TikTok tweets out, Doctor at Sarah Bush News says she describes medication based on her patient's political affiliation and race. Black Sheep in the Midwest tweets out, I prescribe meds. I can also choose not to prescribe them. So, from now on, if you're a white male who votes conservative, your penis needs to ask God for power to rise. No more Viagra. I highly doubt this woman has a prescription pad. When she was challenged over the questionable tweet, she doubled down. Bring it. I'm allowed to prescribe based on need, she added in a second tweet. If you think God can provide, then why would I not allow for that? Conservative men rely on God to provide. I think that's a wonderful idea. Let us pray. Online sleuths were able to track her back to a health center in Mattoon, East Central Illinois. On Monday, the Sarah Bush Lincoln Health Center confirmed that the nurse had resigned. A Sarah Bush Lincoln Advanced Practice registered nurse who posted a discriminatory message on social media over the weekend has resigned, said the health center in a statement on Twitter. The statement quoted an apology from the nurse. I'm deeply sorry for my post on social media. I'm allowed my personal feelings to spill out, he said. Those hateful words are not aligned with how I provided care to my patients, she added. Sarah Bush Lincoln has a wonderful organization, and my actions have tarnished its reputation. I have resigned, and I know that my patients will be well cared for. As if you needed any more reason to not trust the corporate Big Pharma provided medical center and system. Let's talk about Mara Flores. Mara Flores says Pelosi pushed daughter during a photo op. From Zach Schoenfield. Representative Mara Flores, who recently flipped Texas 34th District red, says that Speaker Pelosi pushed her daughter during a new Congresswoman swearing-in ceremony last week. I'm so proud of my strong, beautiful daughter for not allowing this to faze her, Flores tweeted, sharing a video of the moment. She continued to smile and pose for the picture like a queen, Flores wrote. No child should be pushed to the side for a photo op, period. Flores was elected to the seat in a special election earlier this month after Rep. Philemon Vela resigned from Congress in March, eroding Democrats' already razor-thin majority. Flores is the country's first Mexican-born woman to be sworn into Congress. It's sad to see news outlets that know better misrepresent the Speaker's efforts to ensure Flores' daughters would be hidden behind her in all the photos of such an important moment of their family, Drew Hamill, Pelosi's Deputy Chief of Staff, tweeted on Monday. The 34th District had traditionally been a Democratic stronghold, but Flores flipped the seat after garnering 51% of the vote, compared to her Democrat opponent's 43.3%, according to the New York Times, a former newspaper. Now, as far as the photo op, we do have video of this. And I will let you decide for yourself. I'm a little bit on the fence about this, whether or not this was intentional or if this was inadvertent. But I will let you decide. So let's watch.
Ask her to come into the picture.
Pastor?
Yes. And then slide. Yes.
Okay, maybe I am a little bit more on the side of intentional now. I hadn't seen the slow-mo video off of this. But the initial video I saw, I mean, and that's where we see up the initial video as well.
Ask her to come into the picture.
I mean, it looks like a glance and then just kind of an innocent run, but now that when we see it slow down, it almost does look like she is targeting off of this, so I don't know. That might have been intentional, and, you know, I'd kind of like to understand why she would do something like that. But somebody's already out there saying, "Oh my lord, there's nothing there, nothing, but people see what they want to see. It fills them with confirmation. It says they're part of the club of good guys, and how dare she? The child did not even visibly acknowledge any physical content." I don't know if she didn't acknowledge any physical content. Because she did sidestep to go catch her balance back up. I don't know. That looks pretty intentional. But I would have to, like, I would actually have to get into that wine-soaked mind and figure out why you would do a thing like that, especially when you know cameras are facing directly at you. I mean, this woman is evil, but she still knows how to go back and kiss the babies and shake the hands and garner votes. I don't know. I have questions. You hear the flash bulbs. You know the cameras are going off. They're pointing directly at you. So I just look at something like this, and especially with a politician who's been around since the beginning of time and has been reelected consistently over and over again. This just seems like a misstep that a professional like that wouldn't make. That's why I'm questioning it, not necessarily the fact that there's good or evil in Nancy Pelosi's heart. I know she's evil. She's evil in the same way that we all knew Jefferson Davis Hogg was evil. And yet, apparently the people of Hazard County continued to vote for him. Let's talk about Uvalde from the Daily Mail. Man who was cuffed by cops before she managed to jump the fence and save her son from his friends from Uvalde gunmen claims she is now being harassed by officers who park outside her home and flicker their headlights. From Chris Matthews. That's not the Chris Matthews, right? The MSNBC guy? Chris Matthews! Go! The one that retired? That can't be the same one. A mom who was cuffed by cops at Uvalde before she was able to save her two sons from the gunmen at Robb Elementary has claimed officers have been harassing her since the massacre. The Texas elementary school shooting on May 24th left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. On the day of the shooting, Angela Rose Gomez rushed to the school and saved her kids, even though officers tried to stop her. A total of 77 minutes elapsed between the police arriving at the scene and their confrontation with the gunman, which was a Border Patrol agent. Not necessarily a local officer. At the time, Angela Rose Gomez rushed to the school and was cuffed outside as she tried to rescue her children. She convinced the Uvalde officer she knew to ask a U.S. Marshal to let her out of cuffs. As soon as she was free, she ran to the school, saving her kids, all while police were still allowing the shooter, Salvador Rolando Ramos, to roam with an assault rifle. Not an assault rifle. Let's see. Uvalde School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo, in particular, faces a stinging criticism over his response to the mass shooting and was put on admin leave after last week. Since the shooting, Gomez says she faced harassment from officers. Dude, did that cop car did it go like off-roading or something? Did you see that? Look at that thing. Were they out mudding before they went into this? While the family was exercising one evening, a cop had parked at the corner flickering us with his headlights, she told Fox 29. She separated from her children because of the alleged harassment, is considering filing a lawsuit in the wake of the shooting. Her lawyer, Mark DiCarlo, a criminal defense lawyer from Corpus Christi who is representing around 15 Uvalde parents, said because Arredondo wasn't fired immediately, there is an indication of corruption or wrongdoing. Gomez also previously slammed officers for warning her with probation violation for obstruction of justice after she spoke to the media. Yeah, this whole department needs to just be shut down. Hey look, a 32-year-old died suddenly. A Canadian stand-up comic. Here's one, while we're talking about Texas. 46 migrants have been found dead inside a semi-truck in San Antonio, and 16 have been hospitalized, authorities say. Seawall, where were you yesterday? At least 46 people have been found dead inside a semi-truck in San Antonio on Monday, according to authorities. In a scene that Mayor Ron Nirenberg called a horrific human tragedy. Earlier on Monday night, a city councilwoman, Adriana Rocha Garcia, referred to the victims as migrants after she was briefed on the situation by the San Antonio police chief. Authorities were alerted to the scene just before 6 p.m. local time when a worker in a nearby building heard a cry for help, according to San Antonio police chief Bill McManus. The worker found a trailer with doors partially open and saw a number of people deceased inside, McManus said. 16 people, 12 adults and 4 children, have been taken to nearby medical facilities for further care, according to San Antonio Fire Chief Charles Hood. Those who were found alive were hot to the touch, suffering from heat stroke and exhaustion, Hood said. 3 of the migrants were taken to Methodist Hospital Metropolitan and are in stable condition, according to a spokesperson for the Methodist Healthcare. High temps in the San Antonio area ranged from the high 90s to low hundreds on Monday, according to the National Weather Service. Dude. I work sometimes in a trailer when it gets hot out, and even like with the door wide open, with every cooling method you could possibly think of, you do not want to be working in a trailer in that. Or in a trailer at all. Much less a closed up one, going through 100-degree heat in Texas. I understand the want of a better life, but man, there's got to be some self-preservation there somewhere. Let's talk about the Ukraine. Russian missile strike hits shopping mall with more than 1,000 people inside, Ukraine says. From Yulia Talmazan, Phil McCausland, and Artem Grudenin. Ukraine said it feared scores of civilians might be dead or injured after a Russian missile strike hit a crowded shopping mall in the center of the country on Monday. I'm going to tell you this right off the bat. I have to denounce Russia for striking a shopping mall first and foremost, but there's got to be some level of self-accountability as well. I don't like going into shopping malls in crowded areas in a time of peace, in a country where it's almost impossible for something bad to happen like this. I don't like being in that crowd there because I feel like a fish in a barrel. If you are in an active, war-zone, war-torn country, maybe the mall is not the best place for you. And this is, of course, because with everything with the Ukraine, I don't take anything at face value, but no, you should not be shooting missiles at innocent civilian targets, first and foremost. That is wrong. That is evil. But if you go to a place like that and gather with thousands of people in a building like that, you're kind of a sitting duck as well. It's one of those read the room things for me. The number of victims is impossible to imagine, he added, in a post on Telegram messaging app sharing video that showed plumes of gray smoke rising above the building that was consumed in flames as people and first responders ran from it. The apparent attack hit a shopping center in Kremenchuk, a city in the Poltava region, on the banks of Ukraine's Dnieper River. Dmytro Lunin, the head of the Poltava region, said at least 13 people were killed and more than 40 others were injured. So let's see where this is. So there's Kremenchuk, and as we pan out a little bit, we are relatively close to Donetsk, near Dnipro, where some of the action that we've seen off of this has gone. And along the river, on the route from the area that's questioned, on to the capital. Again, I know that people are being told that they can't live in fear, and I understand and respect that, but I'm going to tell you right now, you would not catch me dead in a mall or a crowded area, anywhere in Ukraine if I was Ukrainian. That just, to me, does not seem like it's in the interest of self-preservation. That seems like a bad idea to me. If I was over here, I'd be a little bit more willing, but again, not really. But especially when it's over here. That seems like a bad idea to me. It felt too early to talk about a final number of killed, he said as night fell in Ukraine. Standing outside the smoking rubble of what was once a supermarket, Anton Heroshenko, an advisor for the Ministry of Internal Affairs, said rescuers were digging through what remained of the roof to find potential survivors. So that's what we see off of that. On top of that, more news. The Kiev Independent tweets out, Zelensky on Ukraine's EU candidate status. It is victory. Now we defeat enemy, rebuild Ukraine, become EU member state. And then we will finally rest. Translation. We become EU member and United States comes and fights battle for us. From CNN. Ukraine's EU hopes to get shot in the arm as bloc's leaders approve candidate status. From Luke McGee. Ukraine's long-term goal of joining the European Union has received the latest shot in the arm after the bloc's 27 member states agreed Thursday that the country should be given the candidate status, a significant step on the path to full membership. Today marks a crucial step on your path towards the EU, European Council President Charles Michel said on Twitter after talks in Brussels. Leaders also agreed to approve Moldova's candidacy. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said he was sincerely commends European Council's decision, calling it unique and historical moment in EU-Ukraine relations. The decision made at the EU Council Summit comes a week after the President of the EU Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said it was the opinion of the bloc's executive body that the Ukraine deserved candidate status because it has clearly demonstrated the country's aspiration and the country's determination to live up to European values and standards. However, it's still likely to be years before the Ukraine is able to join the EU. The process is lengthy and requires the agreement from the 27 member states at almost every single stage. That means that there are multiple opportunities for member states to use their veto as a political bargaining chip. Before Ukraine can start negotiations to join the bloc, it must first meet the Copenhagen criteria, an opaque trio of requirements that focus on whether the country has a functioning free market economy. Why? None of the rest of them do. Whether its institutions are fit to uphold European values such as human rights and the EU's interpretation of the rule of law, and whether it has a functioning, inclusive democracy. Why? None of the rest of them do. But apparently they have membership candidacy status. We'll see where this goes, or if this becomes another part of Russia again. Russia, however, says EU candidate status for Ukraine and Moldova will have negative consequences. Russia on Friday said the decision by the EU to accept Ukraine and Moldova as membership candidates would have negative consequences and amounted to the EU's enslaving neighboring countries. Although it could take years for the countries to join the European bloc, the decision to accept them as candidates is a symbol of the EU's intention to reach deep into the former Soviet Union. Maria Zakharova, a spokeswoman for the Russian Foreign Ministry, called the move an attempt to encroach on Russia's sphere of influence within the Commonwealth of Independent States, made up of ex-Soviet states. With the decision to grant Ukraine and Moldova the status of European countries, the EU has confirmed that it continues to actively exploit CIS on geopolitical level and use it to contain Russia, she said in a statement. Well, I mean, they're beholden to NATO, and that was their entire goal, was to contain Russia. They're not thinking of negative consequences of such a step. Well, that makes all this all the more interesting. From CNN, we are running up on the clock too. Ghislaine Maxwell to be sentenced for sex trafficking minor girls for Jeffrey Epstein. Preemptive F in the chat for Ghislaine Maxwell. I want to see the list. From Lauren DeValle. Maxwell is set to be sentenced on Tuesday for her sex trafficking conviction connected to her role facilitating Epstein's sexual abuse of underage girls. Maxwell was convicted in December of 5 of 6 counts against her, including sex trafficking of a minor, transporting a minor with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, and 3 counts of related sexual conspiracy. She was acquitted on 1 charge of enticing a minor to travel and engage in illegal sex acts. The British socialite will be sentenced on only 3 counts, after Alison Nathan agreed that 2 of the conspiracy counts she faced were repetitive. Prosecutors have asked the judge to sentence Maxwell to 30 to 55, which is on par with the federal sentencing guidelines, though the probation department recommends 20. Maxwell's attorneys requested a more lenient sentence of between 4.25 and 5.25 years, calling it a travesty of justice if Maxwell faces a sentence more appropriate for Epstein himself. I just want to see the list, you guys. I didn't know who this woman was before any of this happened. And neither did a whole lot of other people. I don't care if she goes to prison for the rest of her natural life. I'm going to be completely honest and say it. I don't care. I want to see the list. I want to know who among the Hollywood elite, the political elite, the people who tell us how we should live our lives, got off on banging little kids. That's what I want to know. From the Blaze report, Biden unwittingly wired son Hunter tens of thousands of dollars for Russian prostitutes. From Courtney Wheel, the so-called laptop from hell has revealed yet again that some of Hunter's expensive, hedonistic pursuits were funded by President Biden. According to the data uncovered in the laptop, Hunter received tens of thousands of dollars from his father in a very short amount of time. Andrew Kerr and Jerry Dunleavy report for the Washington Examiner that Joe Biden wired his son Hunter a total of $100,000 to help pay Hunter bills from December of 2018 through January of 2019. Though Hunter sought the money under legitimate pretenses, he often spent much of it on Russian escorts, records show. Karen Dunleavy are careful to note that Biden funded these escort enterprises unwittingly, and nothing uncovered from the laptop would suggest Biden was aware of his son's activities. However, Hunter's predictable pattern of behavior, broken promises, fights with other family members regarding money, and the fact that banking institutions had to block some of his financial transactions should have given Joe Biden cause for concern. Records show that Biden wired his son $5,000 an hour after an hour and a half after Hunter negotiated with Ava for an extended time. Richard Ruffner, who was an assistant to Biden at the time, then texted Hunter shortly thereafter to apologize that Joe was only able to send $5,000 because the weekly limit is $7,500. So that's interesting. I can't believe Jill hasn't smothered Hunter with a pillow yet. Because more and more of what he's coming up is causing problems for his father on the world stage. Some bad news for us. KMBC 9, ABC affiliate from Missouri. 3 confirmed dead and dozens more injured after Amtrak passenger train derails. From KMBC 9 news staff. 3 people were confirmed to have died in rural Missouri after an Amtrak passenger train derailment. The crash occurred near Bendon, Missouri around 12:45 p.m. on Monday. At least 50 injuries were reported in addition to the reporting fatalities. The Missouri State Highway Patrol said that 2 people on the train and the driver of the truck that struck the train were killed. Amtrak has confirmed that several cars derailed on Train 4 traveling from LA to Chicago after striking a dump truck at an uncontrolled train crossing near Bendon, Missouri at 12:43 p.m. There were approximately 243 passengers and 12 crew members on board with early reports of injuries. Amtrak has said it has deployed resources to help. All of a sudden, the car that we were on was over and everyone was flying everywhere. Seats were coming apart, bags were going everywhere. And then after it stopped, you could smell the fumes and people started panicking, thinking it was going to catch fire. So we tried to get out as quick as possible, said Amtrak passenger Jason Drinkard, who boarded the train at Kansas's Union Station. One passenger, Rob Nightingale, was on the train and went live on Facebook shortly after the derailment. In his video, he can be heard saying he believes the train collided with the truck, attempting to cross the tracks. This information was later confirmed by Amtrak. Nightingale spoke with the media shortly after the incident. It's also been confirmed that approximately 8 passenger cars and 2 locomotives were involved in the derailment. 2 Boy Scout troops from Appleton, Wisconsin were also on the train. It looks like they all survived, but still. Armstrong said the scouts were on the train were believed to be between 14 and 17, and he confirmed that none were hurt. Well, thank God for small miracles off of that. I need an oil mitch here. It's getting noisy again.
And there are early reports of injuries. We're unsure of how many or how serious they are. Passengers have shared video of several train cars on their side. Missouri State Troopers confirm 8 cars of an Amtrak train left the track. It is Train 4 from Los Angeles to Chicago. The train hit a dump truck at a public crossing before 2 this afternoon. 243 passengers, 12 crew members on board. Here is one of those passengers talking about the moment the train left the tracks.
I was just dozing off to take a quick nap before my lunch reservation, and then there was a jolt, and then I woke up, and then the train started rocking and flickering, and it just seemed like a normal jolt, but then I could definitely feel it come off the tracks, and then it just kept going, and then it started to tip on my side, and I saw the ground coming towards me, well, the dirt and everything. So I shindied myself up against the wall because I was afraid the glass would shatter and I'd get, stuck underneath. And then it stopped, and it was just silence.
First responders from throughout the region are there helping passengers out of those train cars now sitting on their side. Again, we have no numbers yet when it comes to injuries. Amtrak has opened up a hotline for people to get information on.
I don't know. Are there any casualties? Injuries, definitely. It doesn't look like there were any deaths. Oh, 3 deaths. 3 deaths, dozens more injured, 50 possible confirmed injuries off of that. But it's... I mean, I hate to say it, but this could have been a lot worse. Definitely could have been a lot worse. You're in one of those situations where, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen an Amtrak go by, but those things are booking. Those things are cruising. Especially when they're going through some of these Great Plains states. Those things are moving. And to hit a 28,000-pound vehicle at the speeds that they're typically moving, it's a miracle that there weren't more people killed. I got to say that. All right, we're on the clock. We've got to go grab Twitter trending for the day. There were a couple more that I wanted to get to before we head out of here, though. Some that I've been waiting a week on for. These two, this one and this one, I'm going to do. So, we talked about it last week, briefly. Excuse me. Pelosi's husband has been charged with a DUI over May collision in California. It took almost a month to get it done, but yes, they have. He has been charged with DUI at this point. From Zoe Richards. The husband of Speaker Pelosi was charged with 2 alcohol-related driving misdemeanors Thursday stemming from a collision last month in Napa County, California. The County District Attorney's Office issued a criminal complaint against Paul Pelosi, 82, for driving under the influence of alcohol, causing injury, and driving with a BAC at or above 0.08%. A blood sample taken after the collision on May 28th showed Pelosi had a blood alcohol content of 0.082%. The DA's office said in a news release the legal limit in California is 0.08%. Pelosi could face up to 5 years probation, a minimum of 5 days in jail, installation of an ignition interlock device on his vehicle, fines and fees. He could also be required to complete a court-ordered class. None of that's actually going to happen. I can't imagine there's a DA that's willing to take that up. Under state law, authorities can decide whether to file the charges as misdemeanors or felonies. Yeah, they're not going to file those as felonies. Based on the extent of the injuries suffered by the victim, the DA filed a misdemeanor charge, the Napa County District Attorney's Office said in the release. The decision is consistent with how our offices handle these cases with similar injuries. So I have no faith that there's going to be a conviction off of this, but just the fact that a Pelosi in San Francisco got a charge, I think is a miracle at this point, honestly. I think that's incredible. Because you don't see that happen very often. In fact, it's fairly rare. And the last one, we'll close out with a little bit of good news before we do Twitter trending for the day. Yonkers Restaurant gets $5,000 reward from Grubhub for part in Bronx hostage rescue. From Marcus Solis. A restaurant in Yonkers is about to get rewarded big time from the delivery food service Grubhub after a big time decision that helped save the life of a young woman held hostage in the Bronx. They say no good deed goes unpunished, but that's not the case. At the Chipper Truck Cafe, its owners are being rewarded with $5,000 from the food delivery service Grubhub. They thanked us for what we did, and thanks for paying attention to the notes. And for their appreciation, they wanted to give us a reward, restaurant owner Alice Bermejo said. The owners talked to Eyewitness News reporter Sonia Rincon Tuesday about the famous note. Came into the eatery Sunday morning along with the order with their instructions, please call the police, sent by a 24-year-old woman who's being held against her will in an apartment in the Bronx. The note says, please call the police. He is going to call me when you delivered. Come with the cones. Please don't make it obvious. Video from the restaurant shows Bermejo's daughter and another worker see the woman's desperate plea. Police were called a short time later. 32-year-old Kamoy Royal was arrested. He is facing charges of rape, unlawful imprisonment, and other accounts. He's also been linked with an unrelated attempted sexual assault days earlier. Bermejo says on Sunday a reward was the last thing on their minds. It's shocking to us, and we're so grateful that he's caught and the girl is okay, Bermejo said. The money will come in handy. Like most restaurants, things weren't going so chipper for the cafe during the pandemic. The restaurant had to let delivery drivers go to cut costs. The owners turned to services like Uber Eats and DoorDash, and as of a couple months ago, Grubhub. Right now, my head is in a fog, so I don't know, but we could definitely use it. With everything that happened during the pandemic, it will definitely go to good use, Bermejo said. The 32-year-old suspect is being held on a $200,000 bond. So, that's good, and that's good news. I have used Grubhub before. I have a Grubhub account, but they don't operate in my area, unfortunately. But I would definitely give business to Grubhub just because of this. Absolutely. 100% would. So, that is what we see off of that. And as we close out the show, as we always do, we will finish out with Twitter trending for the day. So let's get this back up over here. Let's see what's trending for this on Tuesdays, rather. We go through and check out the Twitter trending and see what 5 things Twitter thinks that we should be talking about today versus what we did actually talk about. Alright, and our number 1 trend is Partner Showcase. Watch the Nintendo Direct with Mini Partner Showcase, Polygon.com. Mini Direct was actually dope. Mega Man Collection, Persona on Switch. Ooh, that would be cool. I don't have a Switch, but Persona is... I've never played Persona. I know that I think Persona 1 through 4 are on PS2, which I can play because I have one. But the soundtrack for Persona is just absolutely amazing. Sparks of Hope release date and Best Partner Showcase yet easily. So these are the showcases of non-Nintendo franchises that are going to be working with Nintendo, which includes Capcom, and I think Persona is actually Capcom too, so... We've got Pac-Man from Tecmo, Portal, which is from Valve, The Direct Partner Showcase had Mario plus Rabbids, a new Sonic Frontiers footage, Pac-Man World Remake, Mega Man Battle Network Collection. That'd be interesting. I played Battle Network before. I enjoyed that one. Personas 3 through 5 in the Portal Collection, plus a bunch of other stuff. That was really, really good showcase. And Fall Guys, too, by the way. So, if you're a Nintendo Switch fan, you've got some new cool stuff coming. I'll think about a Switch after I buy a house. Which, by the way, the donation links are in the chat if you guys want to throw a little bit, buy me a coffee, PayPal, stuff like that. Or throw a cheer. I don't have the alerts up yet over on the Twitch side, but if you want to throw a cheer or throw a subscription up, that's always helpful too. Again, I am going to be taking some time and making sure it's more rewarding if you do subscribe over there. Special emotes, alerts, special thank yous for that. So, and we do have the new emote in the Twitch side as well. You can throw one of those up, and those ones are always going to be free. All right, Sonic Frontiers, going on to the same side with a Nintendo Switch. Sonic Frontiers, a mysterious female voice, serves as guidance throughout your adventure. Here's an exclusive exclusive clip of her first meeting with Sonic. Slow down, read.
Your friends, listen carefully to my guidance, and you will survive. Now, step 1. Throw your hands up, then point them to the floor. Step 2, here's what to do. Now get down on all fours. Step 3, just bounce around. It's easy, follow me. Step 4, go crazy now and beep beep like a sheep.
That was cute. And the actual artistry for the new Sonic games looks really, really good, which that's always been something with Sonic 2. There was a bit of a better graphics chip in the Sega than the Super Nintendo, so they were able to make and render fantastic environments. And that's always been a part of the Sonic experience, is just these fantastic environments that you can go check out. I wasn't as big of a Sonic fan because I didn't have a Sega when I was a kid. So I've only played it a little bit throughout my life, but it does look fun, definitely. And I've seen Sonic for Hire on YouTube, too. If you haven't seen that, don't watch it with the kids in the room. Hocus Pocus 2. That only took 30 years. I haven't seen the first one yet, by the way, either. Disney Plus releases the first teaser trailer and official poster for the movie Hocus Pocus 2, which will begin streaming on September 30th. Right in time for Spooky Month. And we have the official trailer.
Hey, happy birthday. Thanks. So what are you guys doing tonight?
Birthday ritual, scary movie marathon, same as every year.
You know, legend has it, it's on the 16th birthday that a witch gets her powers.
And another year begins anew. Maiden, Mother, and Crone too. We call on thee with one request. Help our intentions manifest.
Sanderson sisters. I bet you're looking for the stage.
Always.
Haven't seen the original movie. But it is coming out. All right, Cassidy Hutchinson will be our fourth one. It's number 5 on here, but it'll be our fourth one because we skipped the Tuesday vibe. Oh, that's harsh, Quest Fanning. It's funny, but it's harsh. Bette Midler didn't need makeup this time. Cassidy Hutchinson. Just in, Cassidy Hutchinson, an aide to former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, is expected to testify publicly on Tuesday at the House January 6 Committee, Select Committee, Unselect Committee hearing. Having worked with Cassidy Hutchinson, I know she was very dedicated to her role while working for Mark Meadows in the Trump White House. She has nothing to hide and no reason to lie about those who she knew what they were doing was wrong and sought pardons. Americans should believe her. And yet, there's no opportunity for somebody to come back and question her the other way. Let's get across. Yes, it's fantastic that she's going to go testify and nobody's going to go watch. Let's cross-examine this. Let's get somebody back out here to ask a question and say, hey, I've got something unscripted that you can't answer for something you've been working with coaches for months and months on end. Bill Crystal, I don't know what Cassidy Hutchinson will say today. Why, did they not give you the script? But by agreeing to step forward and testify under oath, scripted, without a cross, this young woman is showing far more public spirit, integrity, and courage than many of her well-established elders who have chosen a far easier and less honorable path. Anyway. And the last one will be Harvestella. Square Enix announced Harvestella, a Stardew Valley-like life sim RPG with a deadly twist. Really? You had to go down that road for a farming simulator? Can you survive and uncover the mystery of the Season of Death when Harvestella, a new life simulation RPG from Square Enix, comes to Nintendo Switch on November 4th? Now see, if it wasn't for... We'll watch the trailer here. Before I say anything off this, we'll watch the trailer, and then we'll head out of here.
Leafy, a village adorned with the vibrant colours of the changing seasons. Your new life here begins today. Till the land, sow seeds, water crops, and gather a bountiful harvest. Collect crafting materials and ingredients for cooking by setting out on adventures. Travel the world and get to know the people who live in the neighbouring towns and villages. Life is peaceful and time passes by until quietus inevitably arrives, interrupting the cycle of the seasons. Crops wither and all life is threatened. Share in your new friend's sorrow, joy, pain, and courage as you stand together to face momentous ordeals. This is the story of those who live alongside the seasons of life and death, of their fight against the rules of this world.
You know, I was actually interested in that. I'm not going to lie. I love Stardew Valley. You guys know I love Stardew Valley. You guys know that I love that kind of game. I have tried a series of other farming sims. I played Harvest Moon before. But do you really have to Final Fantasy my Stardew Valley? Like, a better graphics version of Stardew Valley, I would play that in a heartbeat. I would enjoy that a lot. But it doesn't have to have Final Fantasy in the elements. Like, you can keep the two of them separate. And I think it would sell. I thought that looked really cool. Like, somebody go build Stardew Valley in the engine for this game. Make a mod. But apparently that's coming out 11/4. I might buy a Switch just for that. Oh, I want to play Breath of the Wild too, actually, but... See if I can go find me a good used Switch. Harvestella's Rune Factory, but Final Fantasy. Yeah, it's Stardew Valley, but Final Fantasy is what it is. But Rune Factory, that's actually another good one. Good way to bring it back up. Alright, we're done, and I have got to put pants on and get out of here. That's it! It's over! It's done. We've completed. The humidity's coming in. I can tell by my ponytail. All right. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun too. I saw a couple new names in the chat. Maybe people realizing I'm a little bit less government focused than they thought I was. I know I saw one that came over from another channel that I frequent often. But yeah, we're gonna head out of here for the day. Where's the outro music? There it is. So, well, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat with us, came and hung out. We got a new follower over there on the Twitch side, and yeah, do remember that I am trying to, and I actually don't know if any of my new stuff shows up in the other chats. I don't think it does. No? No, you guys can't see my new emotes over on the DLive side, and probably not on the YouTube side either. Let's go look. I guess I never tested that. Yeah, no, it just says the J. Edgar Globe over on the YouTube side. It doesn't say anything on the DLive side. So if you guys want to check us out and check all the little bit of new stuff over there, join us, twitch.tv/JEdgar101. Is it twitch.tv or twitch.com? It's twitch.tv. Twitch.tv/JEdgar101. You can go see the globe, and there will be new emotes to come as well. I want to take some time and actually get this to be more user experience, especially given the fact that, again, A Gaines P, as appreciated as he is, has thrown gift subs out left and right. So we'll see what happens with that. And yeah, if you get a gift sub, you can use the tier 1 emotes once we have them in there. And if you don't tell Bezos, but if we do get this set up the way that I want it to, and you pay the $24.99, you can have World Global Homo emote. Oops, did I say that out loud? But yeah, we're head out of here for the day. Come back and join us here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and we'll see what happens over the 24 hours. I hope they start slowing down for the holiday weekend, but we will see. We've got 23 hours to go and figure this out, and we will see you next time. And until then, I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.